Okay, so before starting, I'm sure many of you have read the flyer already, but does anyone have like a idea of how many wildcats we have? 7. So worldwide, okay, how many big cats do we have worldwide? Is it 5? Is it 10? 15? 5? Who thinks it's like, okay, who thinks it's like between 5 and 7 or, I don't know. Sorry? I didn't hear that, sorry.
He thinks it's between 5 and 7.
Between 5 and 7. Okay, we've got 7 big cats worldwide. How many do we have in Sri Lanka? 1, exactly. Yay. Okay. Okay, so now that the big cats cleared, how many small cats do we have worldwide?
34.
34, exactly. So we've got 34 small cats worldwide, and this also includes the domestic cat. Yeah, so how many do we have in the country? Small cats, not just wildcats. 3? Who thinks it's 3? 4? 4, 1, 2 people for 4. Okay, okay. So whoever said 4 was right. We've got 4 small cats in the country, but yeah, the domestic cat falls into the small cat category. But because everyone already knows about their domestic cats, I'm just going to focus on these 3. Can anybody take a guess on the first guy? Okay, so the first is the Rasi spotted cat, the second jungle, and then the third, exactly. So let's start with Rusty. So the Rusty spotted cat is it's called the Koladivya locally. And according to the IUCN Red List, which was updated this year, it was upgraded to near threatened, which is good. But again, it's a very data deficient species. And according to the National Red List, which was updated in 2012, it's an endangered species. So the species, you can identify, it looks a lot like a domestic cat for anyone who's not very used to seeing these animals in the wild. They've got very short fur, and there are various color morphs. So for example, the ones that we have in Sri Lanka are like a brownish with little gray or dark streaks, whereas I've seen photographs of Rasi spotted cats in Eastern Ghats in India, which are like a bright rust color. So it kind of looks a bit odd if you see photographs of them, but it's not photoshopped or anything. Their fur is also splotched with these very light splottings. Again, the Sri Lankan species, the Sri Lankan variation has darker black spotting. They're also identified by the 2 dark cheek streaks and the 4 forehead streaks that run along the forehead, down the neck, and then they turn into like elongated rectangles, I guess, going down the back. Then the belly and chest. Has anyone seen a Rusty in the captive or in the wild? Okay. Have you all ever seen the belly? No? Yes? Okay. So everyone's seen the leopard's belly, right? It's white with black spots. So Rusty spotted cat's belly looks very much the same, except the fur is much longer and fluffier. Right, so then they've also got these little, I don't know whether to call them large, but they've got ears which are sort of medium size, because for a fishing cat it's much smaller, so it's larger than fishing cats. And they're not pointed, the tips, like our domestics, they are more rounded. And the tail is quite long. It's about half the body length from the head to the rump. And the interesting thing about these cats is that the soles of their feet are black. So the next is, so this is just like a side view to understand what I talked about, the splotching, and then you can kind of see the belly and then the cheek streaks and the length of the tail. So we aren't really sure whether they are primarily solitary cats, but we assume they are. They do come together during breeding season. Adult rusties, does anybody want to take a guess on how heavy they are? Sorry? A kilo, 25 kilos, oh gosh. 2 kilos, okay. So the rusties, actually an adult will weigh in between 1 and 1.8 kilos. So because of that, they're known as a hummingbird of the cat family because they're so small, and they are also the smallest species of cat in the world. So 1 kilo is like a bag of sugar. So if anybody wants to get that, just go and carry one at Keels, I guess. Okay, so a 6-month-old a 6-month-old domestic cat is about the size of a rusty, an adult rusty. So they're very, very small. As newborn kittens, anyone want to take a stab at how heavy they are, or how light rather? It ranges between 30 and 40 grams. So 30 and 40 grams is, who eats egg here? I know I love egg, so I eat a lot of egg. But anyone else eat egg? Who has egg in the fridge at home? Okay, so go home after this talk, take an egg out of your fridge, and that is how light baby rusty is, newborn. So that's the one right there, 2 actually. They can fit in the palm of my hand. And then those 2 other ones, they've gotten bigger, so they're on the left, right, your right. Okay, so there is not very much information about rusties having littering in the wild. There's only one record according to Mel and Fiona Sundquist, and that record is from Sri Lanka. Yay! Okay, so and that record was at a tea estate where they had found this female with 2 kittens. She had made a small little den in the rock under this tea bush. So that's the only record we have of wild rusty kittens in a den. So we should be happy about that. They are an arboreal species, or at least that's what we see in captivity. They do get onto the ground when they hunt, but they prefer staying high up. Because of their size, they're very vulnerable for predation, so it's easier for them to kind of chill out and hide in the trees rather than be on the ground and easy to catch. And we think they're nocturnal, but there are cases where rusties are seen during the day. So it varies from cat to cat. So their range is very small. As I mentioned, we've got them. Until this year, actually, we thought that they were only in South India, but now you can see that they have found cases of rusties in northern India. And last year, we got our first confirmation in Nepal, so near Bardia National Park. That was where the first rusty spotted cat was photographed in Nepal, which is quite cool. It's very rare to see these cats, so if anyone has ever seen them in the wild, I mean, hats off to you. You all are very, very lucky people. And because it's so rare and the sightings are so infrequent, it's very difficult for us to understand their population size and the population connectivity within their range countries. The habitat they prefer is dry deciduous and moist forests. They are also found in thorny shrub and grasslands. So Vilpattu is a really good place to see them, and so is Udavalave. And I know we've got a few rusty on camera trap in Yada, but I don't know if anyone has actually seen one over there. So this was actually photographed by, I think his name is at the bottom, but this was photographed in Vilpattu. And then I think this year there was also Noel Rodrigo had managed to film this again in Vilpattu, which I'm very jealous about because this must have been amazing to watch. Sorry. So this again is during the day, so the cats high up in the trees, probably hunting for birds. They tend to, I mean, from the captive rusties I have seen, they tend to come onto the ground in the evenings. This unfortunately is not a sleeping rusty, though it looks a lot like one. This was actually a rusty that was hit by a car last week in close to Kandy. So that's a huge issue for most of our wildlife, especially our wildcats. Is that, I mean, people want to get home really fast, so they speed up and, you know, the animals get knocked over. The other issue faced by the rusty is mistaken identity. So when people do find these rusties, they kill them thinking that they are young leopard. Because rusties do tend to hang about human habitation, so a person who can't identify a rusty from a leopard will end up killing them. Another issue would be people picking these cats up. As kittens, they do look like domestic cat kittens, a bit odd, but you know, again, if somebody can't tell the difference, they'll think it's a kitten, pick it up, take it home, the cat grows up. It's a lot wilder than they thought it would is, and then they ship it off to the wildlife department. Problem with that is the cat's habituated or used to being fed every day. It hasn't learned its hunting skills, so when it is released into the wild, most of them find it a little difficult to feed themselves. Another thing about picking these cats up is people walking through the forest, if they find a kitten, they think that the mother has abandoned them, so they pick them up and they take them to the wildlife department. What actually is happening is that the mom is around, but she's not coming to defend the kitten because obviously we're a lot bigger and she's teeny weeny, so she kind of hangs back. What I do tell people is if you do find a rusty kitten or a fishing cat or a jungle cat kitten, leave it where it is, watch it from a distance for 24 hours. If the mother still hasn't come to take it away or come to feed it, that's when you can go to it, keep it warm, take it to the nearest wildlife department office and hand it over. If not, just leave the animal alone. And never ever pick up any of these wildcats for photo opportunities, because the moment we leave our smell on them, the mums usually don't claim them. Right, so research-wise in the country, Chandika Jayaratna, I don't know if any of you all know him, but he has started a rusty spotted cat project. What he's doing is he's trying to understand the behavior of rusties in agricultural areas and protected areas, and trying to mitigate and understand how they interact with these habitats. Apart from that, there's nothing else. And there was one in India, but not anymore. So there's one project on rusties, which is kind of sad. Okay, so moving on, jungle cat. I'm not gonna pronounce the scientific names because I'm really bad in my Latin. So I mean, excuse me for that. Right. So jungle cats. They're known as the Valbalada in locally, and IUCN Red List has put them as least concern, and the National Red List has put them in as near threatened. They are much larger and lankier than your domestic cat. They've got a plain, unspotted coat, much like a mountain lion. But the interesting thing is that they've got these two very distinct armbands on their front legs. They also have very light banding on their tails. Again, like the rusty, coat color does vary according to the range countries. The really cool thing about this cat is that they do come in the melanistic form. So there are 11 species of wildcat that come melanistic, and the jungle cat's one of them. The really interesting thing about a jungle cat, and if you do see it in the wild and you find it a little difficult to differentiate them from the domestic, is look for the ear tufts. They've got like these little hairy ears. It's shorter than a caracal, but it's very distinct. So that's a female. So adults weigh between 4 and 16 kg. So again, it depends on the range country. Our jungle cats are much smaller than the ones you would find in India, for example. The social organization, again, is largely unknown because they are very, very, very poorly studied. But of course, during breeding season, you will see males with females and you will see mothers with kittens, like these photographs here. Kittens usually come in batches of 2 to 3. And an interesting thing, I actually got a phone call from Dr. Upendra Silva yesterday. And he said that he has observed jungle cat females with kittens in Kurunegala. He was watching them and he found that the females, when they build their nests in the paddy, they make these little nests like bird nests, and these nests have 2 to 3 openings with a nest in the very center. So what he told me was, if somebody did approach the nest, approach one entrance, the mother would take the kittens from inside and leave through another entrance to avoid being caught. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and I wanted to just mention it. Right, so jungle cat range distribution worldwide is very different to the Rasi spotted cat. And because they have such a vast home range from Egypt all the way to Vietnam, they are often known as the jackal of the cat species because they're very good at adapting to various situations and they're just found everywhere. And because of the range, they are also the most common small cat in the world. They prefer grasslands, swamps, reed beds, thick brush. In certain range countries, they're known as a swamp cat. Yeah. And main threats, as usual, most wildlife, it's habitat loss. Then again, we've got roadkill, and then they do come into conflict with people, which is another issue because people are, I'm sorry to say this, but people are moving into wildlife habitat and they have livestock and they have chickens and all these things, and the cats do. I mean, it's easy to catch a chicken because chickens are kind of silly. I don't know if any of you have like owned chickens, you all will know how stupid they are, sorry, but they are kind of stupid. So when a chicken sees a cat, it's like, oh, hello cat, and the cat's like, hi, and grabs the chicken. And of course, chickens are also prone to dying of shock, so you don't just kill one chicken, you have the whole flock kind of having a heart attack and flopping over. So being the person who owns the chicken, you're not going to be very happy to find your entire flock dead. So it's bad news for the cat most of the time. So as an example, a jungle cat caught on the 25th of Jan this year. It was caught in, I think, a chicken coop in Bibile. The fellow has been snacking on this person's poultry. And then the wildlife department came and caught the guy. This is a jungle cat taken on camera trap at someone's house in Kirinda. I don't know if many of you know her, but Manori. This is her place in Kirinda, and that's the jungle cat that visits her garden quite often. In Sri Lanka, there aren't any studies, but Dr. Mittapala, Sriyani Mittapala, is starting a jungle cat study, hopefully end of this month. So that will be good because our jungle cats are finally getting some love. What she's trying to do is she's trying to understand the distribution of these cats in the country so that we can start some really good conservation plans. So the next cat that we have is my cat. I'm not going to pronounce the scientific name. It's very, very difficult. Okay, so locally known as a Hanundivya. Red list status, upgraded to vulnerable, yay. That's good, but they're not out of the woods. Locally endangered. I didn't take these pictures, unfortunately, but yeah. And these aren't wildcats either, these are all captive cats. It's very difficult to photograph these animals. So, they're very distinct because they've got short, coarse fur. And like the rusty spotted cat, they've got the two cheek streaks and the forehead streaks that go along the back. So if you see a rusty spotted cat kitten and a fishing cat kitten in the wild or anywhere, it's very difficult to tell them apart unless you notice the shape of the skull, which also, unless you see them a lot, it's very, very difficult to differentiate. The fur is usually olivey gray, and the tail is very short. It's like a very short, stumpy tail, and it's got like very faint black rings. They're also spotted. So because they're spotted, lots of people think that they're leopards. So when I started my work here, actually people thought that I was releasing leopards in Colombo because they didn't know that there were fishing cats in Colombo. So that caused a bit of an issue for me. Their ears are very short and round, and you'll notice it more in the next picture. Yeah, tiny little ears with a ginormous head, I know. Okay, so because they are very, very, very stocky and muscular cats, we do affectionately call them the cat on steroids. Because they kind of look like these little bodybuilders when they walk around. And adults weigh between 5 and 16 kilos. So the heaviest fishing cat I have ever caught would be, I think he was about 12 kg. So, and he was quite heavy and fat and nice. Okay, so the really cool thing about these fishing cats is that their front feet, the paws, are partially webbed, and all 4 paws have semi-retractable claws. So everyone knows that cats can retract their claws. Yeah? Yes? So that's why, like, if your cat creeps up on you at home, you don't know, but your dog will come taka 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 taka, and you'll hear him. And so that's because the cats have a muscle just over their toe, which pulls the claws in, and it can retract, and the claws come out. So cats, fishing cats like the cheetah are the only species that have semi-retractable claws. So that's the claw for you. So this is a completely relaxed foot, but the claws are still poking out from under the fur. So we think that they have semi-retractable claws because when they do hunt for fish, sometimes they sit on the bank and they dive in behind after a fish. So when they do dive in, they need something to grip the soil and the mud. So that's where the claws kind of come in handy. And as their name suggests, they are very good at catching fish. They have also been seen swimming behind fish, like fully submerged, going behind fish. But of course, catching fish is very hard work. You expend a lot of energy. So if they do have the choice of catching small birds and rodents, like most of the cats that I work with do, they'd rather do that than, go behind a fish and getting wet and, doing all of that. Okay, so range countries. The red is actually where we assume that there are cats. We think that there are cats, but we have no evidence of fishing cats. It's all hearsay. So we'll interview people in the area and they'll say, yeah, I think we've seen this animal. But again, not really sure. We've never had camera trap evidence. Yellow is confirmed sighting. So we've got Sri Lanka, you've got Bangladesh and Nepal. And you also have the purple, which is along the Nepal-Terai arc range. That also is possible fishing cat habitat. So the habitat is perfect for fishing cat, but we still don't have confirmed sightings. They're highly dependent on water. So if you've got a really good body of water and the habitat's also right, you most probably got the fishing cat. So for example, Colombo is a perfect place for fishing cats. We've got amazing wetlands in our city, and our fishing cats are kind of having a ball over here, and I'll get to that in a bit. So the main threats for these cats is, of course, habitat destruction. This is actually an area shot, I think, in Srijavardhanapura. So agriculture is a huge problem. In Thailand, it's shrimp farming. Then we've also got roadkill. Sorry, I know, very gruesome, but it had to be shown. This was actually photographed, I can't remember when this was taken, but it was this year. It was sent to me last week. And it was taken near Boralaskamo. And my colleague and I, Ashan Tulukala and I, we have recorded 68 reported roadkill over the past 36 months. Those are only the reported cases. There are lots of cases that people don't tell us about or the newspapers don't catch. So 68 is a lot. Another issue is accidental snaring or intentional snaring. Luckily for us in this country, people haven't started actively hunting and killing these animals out of anger. But in India, it's a huge issue. Over here, if the cats are caught eating chickens, the wildlife department is called, and they take the cat out. And of course, conflict with humans. So this is Ashan, and this is what Ashan's doing. He's doing threat mitigation in the hill country. So he's recording these roadkill. He's trying to understand how these people interact with the cats, and he's finding solutions for that. He's also set up lots of road signs in Kandy, and hopefully in the near future he will implement these in the rest of the country as well. Right, so moving on to my work. So I handle the Urban Fishing Cat Conservation Project. What I do is I am studying the ecology and behavior of fishing cats in Colombo's urban wetlands. So in 2006, there was a study done which confirmed the presence of fishing cats in Colombo. And because of the war, that project had to stop. So once the war finished and I graduated and came home, I started working on fishing cats. And I kind of started I wanted to see what was happening to the cats because there was a lot of post-war city beautification. So I don't know if any of you can remember, but the wetlands were being cleared at a rate. So I wanted to know what these cats were doing. So before I went about my work, I had to ask people, have you seen fishing cats? So lots of people, even if some people can misidentify. So I take like a bunch of photographs and I show them, they have to pick it out, and if they do pick out the fishing cat, then I continue. Another thing that I ask them is if they've heard a fishing cat, which is important. So I'm going to ask you guys, have any of you heard a fishing cat call? Does anybody want to take a guess on what it sounds like? No one wants to guess?
Like a laughing sound.
Like a laughing sound, okay. There's a hand at the back. What? A growl. Okay, they do growl. They do growl when they're annoyed. Do you think it roars like a big cat? No? Yes? No? Okay. So, this is actually a captive cat. Is the sound on? Okay. So, she actually is in the Aspinall Foundation in England. And her name is Oya. So my cat on steroids quacks like a duck. Yeah. So does anyone want me to play it again? Yeah, okay. So that's her. She's a nice cat. Okay, so once people have told me, okay, I have seen fishing cats and I have possibly heard fishing cats, then the next thing I go and do is I go and look for, I know maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but I have to. It's like my favorite thing in the world. It's scat. I love scat. Animal scat is amazing. You learn so many things when you look at animal scat.